My fiancé's family made me sign a prenup to protect their wealth. They had no idea who actually owned their empire. My fiancé, Chad, comes from old money. Not flashy, tech startup money, but generational, real estate and manufacturing empire money. For 3 years, I played the humble, adoring girlfriend to his deeply snobbish family. I wore the muted colors, endured the passive-aggressive jabs at Sunday dinners, and smiled when they treated me like a charity case. When Chad finally proposed, his parents, Richard and Eleanor, didn't pop champagne. Instead, they slid a 40-page prenuptial agreement across the dining table like it was a subpoena. Richard cleared his throat, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses. Let's be entirely transparent, Olivia. The Sterling family empire represents nearly a century of blood, sweat, and shrewd investments. We love Chad, but we have a duty to protect what is ours. This document ensures that in the event of a divorce, you walk away with zero claim to Sterling Holdings, our trusts, or our real estate portfolio. You keep what is yours, we keep what is ours. Eleanor looked at me with cold, pitying eyes. Don't take it personally, dear. Gold diggers are everywhere these days. We just have to be smart. I looked at Chad. He wouldn't even meet my eyes, mumbling something about how Mom and Dad just want to be cautious, and that if I really loved him, the prenup wouldn't matter. They assumed I was a struggling graphic designer living paycheck to paycheck. They assumed I needed their name, their status, and their money. They had no idea who I actually was. 3 years ago, before I ever met Chad at that charity gala, I wasn't just a struggling graphic designer. I was the sole heir and managing trustee of Vanguard Global Assets, a private equity and asset management firm that my late grandfather built from the ground up, and which I took over at age 25. While the Sterling family was wealthy, their empire was actually a mid-tier player compared to Vanguard. More importantly, over the preceding 18 months, Vanguard Global Assets had quietly been buying up distressed debt, commercial mortgages, and equity shares across the region, including a massive, highly leveraged debt portfolio held by none other than Sterling Holdings. Months before the engagement, Richard and Eleanor had made a catastrophic business blunder. They took out a massive, predatory interest bridge loan to fund a vanity manufacturing plant expansion. When the market dipped, that loan defaulted. Who bought the debt pennies on the dollar through an anonymous holding shell? Vanguard. Me? By the time they handed me that prenup, I didn't just hold a mortgage on their primary commercial properties, I held the master promissory notes for their entire corporate structure. They were essentially operating on borrowed time, completely at the mercy of Vanguard's board of directors. And guess who the sole voting member of that board was? Surprise! I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I smiled, thanked them for their prudence, and signed the prenup on the spot. I even let Chad pay for a notary. For the next 2 months, I played the dutiful fiancé. I went dress shopping with Eleanor, letting her pick out a hideous, overly expensive dress that I secretly knew I would never wear. I listened to Richard drone on about his golf game. Behind the scenes, my legal team was finalizing the restructuring. The wedding was set for a sprawling estate owned by Sterling Holdings. 300 high society guests, a live string quartet, and a catered menu that cost more than a luxury car. The big day arrived. I stood in the bridal suite, hair and makeup done, looking stunning in a custom gown I paid for myself. Chad walked in, looking smug. Ready to officially join the dynasty, he asked, kissing my forehead. Just remember, no hard feelings about the prenup. It's just business. Oh, Chad, I whispered, smoothing his lapel. You have no idea how right you are. It's strictly business. The ceremony went off without a hitch. The reception was held in the grand glass-walled ballroom of the Sterling-owned Grand Horizon Hotel. Halfway through the dinner, right before the toasts, the ballroom doors swung open. It wasn't the dessert cart. It was a team of 4 federal marshals and 2 high-powered corporate restructuring attorneys carrying thick briefcases. The room went dead silent. The string quartet ground to an awkward halt. Richard stood up, furious, marching toward the lead attorney. What is the meaning of this? This is a private event. Security, throw these. The lead attorney didn't flinch. He pulled out a crisp, official document and spoke loud enough for the entire room to hear. Richard Sterling, you are formally served with a notice of default and immediate receivership foreclosure on behalf of Vanguard Global Assets. As of 6 p.m. today, all commercial assets, operating licenses, and real estate holdings of Sterling Holdings have been seized to satisfy outstanding liabilities totaling $42 million. The color drained entirely from Richard's face. He staggered back, nearly knocking over a table of champagne flutes. That's impossible. Our debt was held by Apex Financial. They wouldn't call it in. Apex sold the portfolio 3 months ago, the attorney replied calmly. To Vanguard. The transaction is fully legal and binding. Eleanor shrieked, standing up so fast her chair crashed to the floor. Who the hell runs Vanguard? We will sue you into the Stone Age. The attorney turned slowly, looked past the bewildered crowd, and walked straight over to the head table. He stopped in front of me, bowed slightly, and handed me a sleek leather folder. Allow me to introduce, the attorney announced to the stunned room, Olivia Vance. Sole owner, CEO, and chairperson of Vanguard Global Assets, and the primary lien holder of every single asset your family currently claims to own. The silence in that room was so heavy you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. I was doing market research, Chad, I said, taking a slow sip of my champagne. Your parents were right, you know. You always have to protect your wealth against opportunistic people who want to marry into a name. I stood up, smoothing my dress, and looked directly at Richard and Eleanor, who were now trembling with a mix of shock and absolute rage. The prenup your parents forced me to sign states that I have no claim to Sterling Holdings, I continued, projecting my voice so every single snobby relative could hear. Which is fantastic news for me, because it means when I foreclose on this hotel tomorrow morning, liquidate your manufacturing plants, and auction off your family mansion to pay down your debts, none of your corporate liabilities attached to my personal estate. I unclipped my diamond engagement ring, dropped it neatly into Chad's champagne glass with a sharp clink, and grabbed my designer clutch. Thank you for the lovely wedding reception, Richard. The food was fantastic. But as for the marriage, well, let's just say I'm exercising my right to walk away with zero assets tied to the Sterling family. As I walked out of the ballroom, past 300 gaping socialites, I heard Richard collapse into a chair and Eleanor burst into absolute hysterics. Vanguard took over the Sterling portfolio the following week. The family mansion went to auction a month later. Chad tried to text and call me hundreds of times, begging for a meeting, but my lawyers blocked every channel. Turns out, looking out for your family's empire is a great business strategy. You just have to make sure you're looking at the right person.